Hi there, welcome to this short training on root cause analysis. My name is Tolu Alao. In the next 1 hour, I'll take you on a journey on the root cause analysis methodology. I walk you through the basics of brainstorming, the RCA tools, and how to get the best out of your problem solving concepts and rules and methodologies. At the end of this training, you should understand how to think creatively about what could cause a problem, using all the tools, profile solutions, and come up with the best course of action to fix problems once and for all. I look forward to sharing this course with you. It's really been a privilege to do this, and I know that you will gain some value at the end of this course. I wish you the best. See you at the end of this course.
Okay, so let's jump into our root cause analysis, right? And first of all, let's start with what this diagram shows, right? Because this sets the tone and sets the stage for all that we'll be talking about, right? So you can see from here that we have what is known as the symptom, right? That is what usually draws our attention to know that there's a problem, right? We typically would see a symptom and we know that something is wrong, right? And then we might have a visible problem, and that visible problem might be caused by what is called the first level cause, and then we have a higher level cause, as well as then we get to our final root cause, right? This is the underlying issue, right? And let me just try and get practical a bit. So let's say that, for instance, we feel our temperature rising, right? We're having a fever, right? And then this fever could be as a result of a number of issues, right? It could be, malaria. It could even be COVID, right? Which is what is quite common from 2019 till this. So it could be COVID. It could be something else. It could be anything, right? And what typically would happen is that we might decide to, take paracetamol or something that brings down our temperature, right? But that has not solved the root cause, because what would happen is that the moment that drug wears off, right, your temperature comes back up, right? You can take the drug again, your temperature goes down. The moment drugs wears off, your temperature comes back up, right? And what you want to do, right, is to solve the underlying issue, right? The temperature could, be as a result of a swelling somewhere. The swelling could be as a result of something else, right? Could be maybe a force somewhere, and then you eventually, can be as a result of something else, right? So what you want to do is to always get down to the fundamental issue, right, which is our root cause. And this is what this, training is about: understanding how to get our root cause. How do we solve problems in a way that once we solve that problem, we know we've solved it once and for all, right? And just before I jump into, the meat of this training, I want to, emphasize three major points, right? I've mentioned one now. Whenever, and that's the first point. So the first point now is that whenever you say you've solved a root cause, we expect that that problem will not reoccur, right? So if I say that I had malaria, right? Malaria was the root cause of the high temperature, right? If I treat malaria, right, if I take my anti-malaria drugs, I finish my treatment, then I would expect that I will not have high temperature again, right? Malaria will be sorted out once and for all, at least in that instance, right? So if I finish my treatment for malaria and I still have high temperature, I still have all the symptoms, the visible problem, and all of that, then it means that you've not treated the root cause. That's what it means, right? So, and that's a very important point for you to note. So if we say that we've solved a problem, we've addressed the root cause, right, then we don't expect to see that problem occur again, right? And that's the first point. The next point, which is also important, right, for us here, is that root cause analysis is usually done when the cause of the problem is not obvious, right? So if I have a problem and I know what the cause is, like the cause is obvious. I already know what the problem is. I know what caused it, right? There's no need going through the exercise of doing a root cause analysis, right? So the whole point of doing root cause analysis is not to, fulfill all righteousness or to go through the motions. They said we must do root cause analysis. If you know what the problem is, go ahead and fix it, right? There's no point, creating drama here and there because we want to do a root cause analysis, and that's very important. So, for instance, back to our health example, right? If I already know that I'd exposed myself to malaria, gotten mosquitoes, I've even done tests, I already have the results, then I know that that's the problem, right? I fix that, and I don't expect to see malaria in my system again, right? And that's, the second point for our root cause analysis. The final point, right, before we jump into this program, is to know that root cause analysis is usually done when you have a problem that could have varying causes, right? So there are times when I could have a number of complexities. So typically, let's say in production or in manufacturing, I have a problem that could be as a result of 8 different things, right? But I'm not sure which of them in this particular case caused this problem, right? Then root cause would be ideal because you are not sure. The problem is not obvious, right? The cause is not obvious. You don't obviously know what has caused this problem, but you know that there are a number of things that could have gone wrong, right? And so doing a root cause will be very, very useful in those situations because you're able to, test all your hypotheses, test all your theories, and see what is the actual root cause in this case and solve your problem, right? So the goal to find root cause is to find the underlying issue. What caused that symptom? What caused that visible problem, right? You want to go beyond the surface, right? You want to go beyond what people can see, what is obvious, right? To get to the very, very root cause, right? And I have here that a problem is often the result of multiple causes at different levels, right? And that's what I said about maximizing root cause analysis. All right, so let's move to the next portion of this course. All right. All right, so here we're saying that root cause analysis is a structured investigation, right? And take note of this word investigation because I'm going to be, calling back on that as we go on this journey, right, to understand root cause analysis. So it's a structured investigation that aims to identify the true cause, right? That's another key word, true cause. So we want to identify what is the true cause of a problem, not the apparent cause of what we think is a problem, right? We want to be able to rule out any form of noise and get to the true cause of a problem. And the final part of the root cause analysis is to profile actions, right, that are necessary to eliminate it, right? The true test that you have identified your root cause is that when you implement actions to eliminate this root cause, right, the problem do not reoccur, like I said, right? So you want to be able to take actions that will eliminate this root cause, right? And then we're sure that it does not happen again. All right. So we'll move to the 7 discipline approach, right? And I'm taking my time, to go through these basics because it's important that you understand the ingredients to have a successful root cause analysis, right? It's not just about, oh, I think this is a problem, I think this is what we need to do, and we just do it and then we run away. No, there's a structured way of solving problems, right? There's a structured way of finding the root cause because that's what root cause is about, a structured way to investigate the true cause of the problem and profile actions or solutions to eliminate this problem, right? So the first approach is to use a team approach, right? It's important that you understand that root cause analysis, the most successful root cause analysis is root cause analysis that is done with a collection of people together, right? People who understand the process, who understand the technicalities, who have also the authority to, profile the needed support to cause change. So let me give you an example here. So let's say that if you watch a lot of crime movies, right? I'm going back to what I said about investigation, right? A crime has been committed, right? There's a problem, right? A very popular one is maybe an homicide, right, or a murder case, right? A crime has been committed, and the detective has been given this task to find who committed this crime, right? So there are multiple angles to look at it, right? So let's say a wife was murdered, right? The first suspect, or the first, the usual suspect, usually the husband. They say, oh no, the husband is the one. But how do we get to solving this problem? And we are saying that the first discipline, the first approach to this is to get a team together. So the detective, we get someone from forensic, right? We get somebody from the lab, right? We get, he might need some IT support, some technical support, right? He might even need a psychologist. He might need different people. But the whole idea is that he pulls together a team of people who understand how these cases are solved, right? Who understand how to go about driving the right conversations, asking the right questions, and ruling out different scenarios, right? So it's important that if you want to solve a problem, right, especially a problem that you're not even sure what has caused the problem, you want to get as many technical support as you can, right? People understand what may have caused this, right? So the first discipline is to take a team approach. What's the next discipline? All right, the next discipline is to describe the problem properly, right? In fact, there's a common saying that says that a problem a problem properly defined, right, is half solved, right? I think I just made that up. But the whole idea is that you want to be able to describe the problem properly, because without the proper problem description or definition, you might be solving the wrong problem, right? So it's important that you know what exactly has happened, right? So if, for instance, somebody just tells you that, oh, we have a problem, customers are complaining. What are customers complaining about, right? Customers are complaining is very vague. What are they saying is the problem? What are they saying? Oh, they don't like the taste of your product. What is it, that it's too sweet? Is it too bitter? Right? Did we see something that we shouldn't see in that product? Right? Or is the product not performing by what standard? Right? So it's important that in order to solve a problem properly, you understand what you're actually even solving, right? You understand what the actual problem is. And there are a lot of techniques. We'll look at a couple of them in this training, but there are ways to go about defining the problem and describing the problem in a right way, such that it helps scope your RCA, right, your root cause analysis, and also prioritize your solution, right? So it's important that we describe the problem properly. All right, so what's the next disciplined approach to RCAs? The next disciplined approach is to define and check root causes, right? And we'll get into some more details shortly, but just know that you want to be able to define, and you see that what we have here is root causes, right? It's plural. So you might need to, there might be potential root causes, right? But what you want to do is conduct tests, conduct investigation experiments to be able to narrow down those potential and say, okay, uh, 8 different things could have caused this problem, right? So let's go back to a homicide case, right, or a murder case, right? So it could have been a husband, it could have been somebody else that was jealous, it could maybe someone at work, right? It could have been somewhere, just about anybody, right? And let's say we brought our team together, we've done some brainstorming, and we've been able to narrow it to like maybe there are 8 possible people, right? And then we now have to isolate them one after the other, right? So after we've described our problem, the next stage is to define and check each of them. So we're going to check each of those potential causes and then isolate the ones that are relevant, right? All right. So what's the next disciplined approach? The next disciplined approach is to check corrective action, right? So when we've decided that this is, and this builds on the previous point, right? So when we've decided that, okay, these are the potential causes, we've narrowed it to maybe 2 direct causes, right? We are going to try and, take some corrective action. Let's do something about it. Let's do this, and let's see if this would actually solve the problem. And that's what this approach is talking about. Check whether your corrective action works, right? Does it adequately address the problem without creating side effects, right? So if I go back to my health example, and I've isolated the problem to be malaria, and I've taken anti-malaria, do I feel better, right? Am I getting better, or am I getting worse, right? Are there other side effects? Are things coming up that were not there before? So that's checking for corrective action. All right, let's move to the next point here. And so the next point is to start permanent corrective action, right? And so this depends on the previous. So if, for instance, when you are checking for corrective action and you saw that it was not effective, right, then you have to change your corrective action. But if you see that, oh, the anti-malaria is working, then of course that's my permanent corrective action. So I'm going to keep taking my anti-malaria until I'm done with my treatments, and then I can maybe do another test and be sure that I'm not, I still don't have malaria, right? But what we want to do in this fifth discipline approach, number 5 here, is to, after confirming the suitability of our corrective action, we need to make sure that this is followed through to the end, right? So we ensure that we completely take all the necessary. So if it's antibiotics, for instance, or it's anti-malaria, you ensure that you complete your dose, right? You start your treatment and you complete your treatment to the very, very end. All right. And so what's the next approach? The next approach is very, very important, right? The next approach is to stop future problems. So back to our health example, right? We realized that it was malaria all along. We've taken anti-malaria and all of that. But do we go and expose ourselves to malaria? No, we don't go and do that again. So we stop future problems by taking, doing preventive things, right? So if it means using a mosquito net, using an insecticide, staying away from areas that are infested with mosquitoes, having a good hygiene around where we live and all of that, right? So these are things that you do to stop future problems, right? Because you don't want to have to go back to, solving this problem again, right? Remember what I said about RCAs. The idea of an RCA is that if I've identified something as the root cause of the problems, then I want to solve the problem at the moment and also prevent it from happening in the future again, right? And so this is where we now stop future problems and all of that, right? So it can involve a lot of things, right? It might involve taking additional controls, procurement of raw materials and all of that, like I have listed here in the slide. So, but basically what you want to do is to build a system around stopping future occurrence of that root cause, right? Another problem can come up in future, right, that is unrelated to malaria, right? But for the sake of our case now, I have discovered that whenever I get malaria, I get temperature, and I don't want to have temperature, body weakness, and all of that, right? So I want to stop it once and for all and ensure that I put the necessary controls, right, to stop that problem from happening. All right, the final disciplined approach to RCAs is to congratulate the team, right? And this is about, giving credits, recognition, rewards to those that contributed to solution, right? Providing solution and, the successful deployment of our solution, right? So, and what this also does is it reinforces the mindset of solving problems thoroughly, right? It reinforces the mindset of solving root cause, right? We want to encourage people to, go beyond the visible problem, the symptoms, right, the high level cause, and encourage people to always do a root cause analysis and, do actions that close out those root cause analysis, right? The outcome of the root cause analysis. So it's one thing for you to, do an RCA and say, oh, these are the recommendations, this is what we need to do. It's another thing to, follow through with all those actions and close all the gaps to make sure that problem does not reoccur, right? And that's what we need to celebrate. That's what we need to recognize and give credit to, those who have contributed to making this a reality for us. All right, so these are the 7 disciplined approach to RCAs, right? And I'm sure that if you have this mindset, if you do this, you can be rest assured that anytime you do an RCA, you will get to the root cause, you will get results, and you will solve problems that would not reoccur again, right? You solve them once and for all, and then you can have a good night's rest, right? All right, so let's jump into the RCA tools in the next video. All right. All right, so for RCA tools, there are a number of tools that we can use to do our RCAs, right? And I will, major my discussion on these ones, right? The 5 of them, because these are the foundation. There are other tools, but let's start with these 5. And if you understand these foundational RCA tools, you can be rest assured that at the very minimum, you'll be able to solve problems once and for all, right? And so we have brainstorming, we have cause and effect diagram, and I'll take them one after the other. We have 5 whys, and we have Pareto. And finally, we have action plan forms. All right, so let's jump into brainstorming. What is brainstorming, and how can we get the best out of brainstorming? All right. All right, so brainstorming. So brainstorming is a process where an individual or team develops as many ideas concerning the topic as they can, right? And so what you have with brainstorming is that you have a team of people, right? Remember that for RCAs are done as a team. So even if I say we're an individual or team, what I would expect is that you do an RCA in a group in a team, right? And but this is explaining what brainstorming is. So brainstorming is about bringing ideas as much as possible, right? And so with brainstorming, we are concerned with the quantity of ideas. We want you to bring as much ideas as possible. You want to be sharing, oh, this is what could have happened, this is what could happen, right? There are no bad ideas, right, when you're brainstorming, right? And there are basically 2 phases to brainstorming. We have the creative phase and the evaluation phase, right? The first phase, which is the creative phase, is what I described, right? Where everyone is, just talking about the idea, saying this is what they think, and all of that, right? And, at that creative space, you want to give people the opportunity to be free to talk as much as they can, right? Because we are trying to harvest as much ideas as possible at the creative phase, right? Creative phase is to harvest ideas. My evaluation phase is where now, after I've harvested the ideas, I will now evaluate the ideas to, group similar ideas together, to even discard some, to keep some, and, sort those ideas and all, right? What you want to do is to separate these 2 phases together, right? You don't want people giving ideas and say, oh, they think this is what could have happened. And at that instant, you're evaluating the idea and telling them, no, that doesn't make sense. No. So what you're just going to do with that is discourage people from talking, right? So in the creative part of brainstorming, you want people to, say things as they come to their mind, right? You want people to express their mind. You want people to, share their ideas freely, you know, and all of that. So let's move ahead and this gets interesting as we go deeper. All right. So like I said, during the creative phase, there should be no criticism, right, or distractions allowed. And this is what I was saying. It's so important. Have an open mind, right? You know, it can get so interesting sometimes when you're, because I've attended a lot of RCA meetings and discussions with team members where people are saying, no, this problem could not have come from us, right? Everybody is defending their territory. It is not our problem. We know what we did. We know this. The standard says this, and that's what we followed. No. So at brainstorming phase, you want to have an open mind. Think about all the possibilities that could have gone wrong. No matter how well the idea is, the goal is to get as many ideas as possible, right? Remember what I said? It is quantity, right, that we value in brainstorm. We want to get as much ideas as possible. There's also the concept of hitchhiking, right? You want a situation where team members can also build from previous ideas, right? So, and this is why it's always good to have a team of, diverse people, right? Somebody from engineering, somebody from quality, somebody from production, right? Somebody from safety, different ideas, different perspective, and they look at the problem from different lens. Oh, this is what could have happened, right? We have this quality defects. The quality person says, I think this is what could have happened. The production person says, because we have an open mind, right? We're not here to, blame anybody and say, because what you want is to get to the root cause, right? And it doesn't matter who that problem rests with, right? Because what would happen is that, just think about it, right? Let me digress a bit. What would happen is that if me as a production person refuse to share my ideas or what could have happened, and the quality person is talking that this is what I think I did wrong or this is what could have happened, what will happen is that we will spend our energy solving that problem in quality only for the problem to reoccur again, right? Is that what you want? No, we don't want that, right? So which is why you want everybody to contribute, because you don't want a situation where you think you have solved the problem and the production guy is quiet because he knows something has gone wrong in his side that needs to be fixed, but he doesn't want to own up or talk about it because he feels that, oh, if I say this and it comes up, maybe somebody will blame me, right? So of course the mindset from the owners of the business, from the management and every other person is that we want to solve this problem, right? It has happened and we're not sure why it happened, so we want to get to the root cause and solve this problem, right? So we want as many ideas as possible, and then we can now say, okay, this is what I think. Oh, let's build on that idea and let's get it to make more sense, and then we solve the problem once and for all. So in the creative phase, again, what you want is quantity, right? No criticism, no distraction, have an open mind, right? And then we can be sure that we'll have the best from our team. All right, so let's move to the next part of this. All right, so for the evaluation phase, right, you've done your creative phase where you produced a lot of ideas, right, possibilities on what could have gone wrong, right? So now it's time to evaluate those ideas. It's time to look at what you said could have happened, right? And here a good starting point is usually to organize those ideas into categories, right? So I group them into clusters. So let's say five team members were giving different ideas, right? But I could see some similarities or some, areas. Some of them could be people related, some could be machine related, some could be measurements related, right? And then I can, have the logical groupings of these ideas. It's part of the evaluation process, right? I could also discard some ideas and say, oh, okay, um, this might not be useful at this point in time, right? My role in all of this is a facilitator, right, or a coach, or the team lead of this RCA team, right? We want to solve this problem, right? And I'm trying to, evaluate this with my team members to really understand what could have gone wrong, right, in all of this. So it's important that we're able to measure all of this together and see how they come here, right, and all of that. All right, so that's evaluation, and that's what evaluation talks about here. All right. There's another important part of brainstorming, which is called nominal group technique, right? And this is usually used when we want to, talk about something sensitive or a controversial topic, right? And there are times when even in some teams, some people are more vocal than others, right? And if given the opportunity, nobody else will talk, right? So imagine you have a team member that is very vocal and always wants to take charge of all meetings, talk in all meetings and all of that, right? You might have what we call, the group think or the bandwagon effect, where people just agree because the loudest person in the room is talking and this is what the person is saying the problem is, and deep down that there are other things that could have caused this problem as a team member, but because everybody's listening to this guy, right? Or even the hippo effects, right? The highest paid person in the room, right? The highest paid person's opinion, That's what we call hippo, right? So it could be in that situation where, because this person is an influential person, right? Imagine you're in a meeting with, the MD of your company, or a senior manager, or a director of your company, and everybody's supposed to brainstorm. There's that tendency for people not to talk as much, right? Because, oh, there's somebody very senior here, and let me not go and expose this, or let me not go and say this, right? And so the nominal group technique can be very useful in that sense, because what you want to do is for your team members to sit down by themselves, right, and silently think and generate ideas, right? So they are going to write what they think the problem is, or write their ideas. So it's brainstorming, but you're brainstorming individually on paper, right? So there's no verbal interaction, right? Members are not going to interact together, right? The major disadvantage, right, if you ask me, is the fact that we cannot build up on other people's ideas, right? So if you remember when I was talking about the creative phase, where we can hitchhike on people's ideas. Somebody can say something that will trigger something in my mind. I'll take it to the next level. Somebody says, what if A cause B? I'm like, oh, okay. What if from B we went to C, right? But because we're all writing, I don't know what other people are thinking. I might not be able to build up on their ideas, right? But this also allows, team members to also talk, right? Another technique, which I don't have here, which can be used, is what we call the round robin. And that usually involves having everybody talk one after the other. So we have, turns. We take turns. You can have a token, or you have something that you pass around. When you're holding the token, you speak, right? So instead of, the haphazard, everybody is just talking and shooting ideas, we might want to also do that strategy, right? So basically, what you want to do, let me come back to nominal group technique, is that for controversial or sensitive topics, or topics where people want to maintain anonymity, you don't want to know who is saying what, right? You want people to be able to, comfortably talk about what they think the problem is, without being afraid of, what their manager or somebody else might think, right? Then you can have them write it down and give it to the team leader. The team leader reads the ideas, and then somebody else writes it on the board, and then we can now start, evaluating those ideas together. All right. So that's something also important that can be done, right, in brainstorming. And basically, that's what brainstorming is about: getting ideas on how to solve a problem, and getting as much as possible that the ideas are evaluated. And then it takes us to the next tool that we use in root cause analysis, which is our cause and effects diagram. All right. See you in the next video. Okay, so for cause and effect diagram, right? Cause and effect diagram is also called fishbone diagram, right? Because it looks like a fishbone, right? Titus fish, or whatever fish you're familiar with, right? So you have the head of the fish. Let me just get my marker here, my pen. So you have the head of the fish here, right? And then you have the different parts, the different branches of the fish, right? It's also named after the person who came up with this idea, called Ishikawa, right? So Ishikawa is somebody's name. So you either call it a cause and effect diagram, or you call it a fishbone diagram, or you call it an Ishikawa diagram. Any one of them works, right? So basically what you have with this is that the cause and effect diagram allows you to brainstorm in a structured way, right? So you have categories, right? And in this particular instance, example here, I have what we've grouped categories into 6 categories here, 6 M's, right? This is what we call 6 M's. So we have measurements, we have materials, we have method, we have mother nature, right? Or environments, like some people call it. But so that this is M, we say mother nature. We have manpower, that's people, right? And we have machine, right? You can have other categories as much as you like, right? But this is a very common way of categorizing, problems, right? And then you have the head of the fish that takes in the problem statements, right? Or the effects, right? So we say cause and effect diagram, right? So we have causes. All of these are causes, right? All of these are potential causes, right? And all these potential causes for measurements, for materials related, for method, can cause an effect here, right, which is our problem. So this problem could have different causes, right, in all these areas. So what you want to do while brainstorming is to think of all the measurements related. As an example now, if I was to use this tool, I'm going to think of all the measurements related things that can cause that problem, right? And so all the team is thinking, oh, what are the measurements related things? What are the things that maybe if the measurements has, maybe you use the wrong quantity, right, it can result in that problem. What are the things for material? What are the things that are material related? Whether the material is low quality, or the material was not properly done, or you use the wrong material, right? What are those things that can result to that problem? For method, what are the methods, right? If you use maybe the wrong, oh, you're supposed to use 1 hour, you use 30 minutes. You're supposed to do 30 minutes, you use 2 hours. That's the wrong method, right? That could also cause a problem for us, right? So those are the kind of things that you put on that method, right? If the wrong method is used, right, that could result to a problem. What are the environmental? So for mother nature, what are the environmental related things? So maybe the humidity of the room is not correct, or the temperature, right, or the wind, or corrosion. What are the things that are, environmental in nature that could have caused that problem, right? Then we have manpower. What are the people related things? So let's say there's a competency issue, or there was a negligence by a person. Somebody was supposed to do something, the person did not do it, right? It was not the method that was the problem, it was not the material, it was not the measurement, it wasn't the environment, but it was a person, right? And so that would fall under manpower. Then we have machine related things, right? So what are the equipment related things that could have caused that problem? The equipment, not general wear and tear of the equipment, or the equipment, there's a broken or a failure somewhere in the equipment, right, that could have caused this problem, right? And so what you see here is that the cause and effect diagram allows you to, structure your thought process in terms of brainstorming. Oh, we're thinking about each of these blocks one after the other. So everybody is contributing, and then we can now, take it to the next level. You see that I have this circle here, and I have this cross here. I have a lot of markings here, but just try and follow me. So you see that after I've identified what those possible problems are, because at this stage, all these things that I identified here are potentials, right? They are potential causes to that problem, right? They are all potential causes to that problem. And I'll look at an example. So just follow me for now. So what I might end up doing is that I might take each of those potential and investigate further, right? Upon investigation, I might discover that, oh, that did not make sense. No, this person. So let's think about my, homicide case, right? So let's say the husband was a suspect, right? And our team member, who is the forensic or the medical person, has identified that the murder happened between so time. So let's say between 10 and 12 in the night. That was when this murder happened. But our first suspect has an alibi, right? We have evidence that shows that this suspect was not even in the country, right? His passport shows that he just arrived Nigeria like maybe 2 days after. In fact, there are videos of him in another place. People can place him in another country, right? So that means that that potential cause is no longer valid, right? So I'm going to, use this my cross here to strike that out here. But anybody who sees my cause and effect diagram will know that I considered that case, right, or that angle, and I've done my investigation and found out that that doesn't make sense, and that's why you can comfortably strike that out, right, and all of that. And so I will keep striking, all those things that are not relevant, keep striking them out until I'm able to narrow it down to a few potential causes. Who knows? I might just even narrow it down to one, right? Sometimes it could be more than one, right? So, but that's what I'm going to use this circle to do, right? All the potential causes, I'm going to circle them and take you to the next tool that I'll talk about shortly, right? So that is basically the cause and effect diagram, and I just thought to take some time to explain it, right, and how it works, right? So let's look at our text here and see what if there's anything that I missed here. All right. So we're saying that the cause and effect diagram is a tool used to identify many potential causes for an effect. So I've explained all of this, right? And we're saying that factors thought to cause a problem or result in an issue are grouped into categories, right? Like I told us, we had the 6 M's that we used there with the head of the fish depicting the problem, right? So the goal of the cause and effect diagram is to identify all the probable causes, right? And select the most likely ones for further investigation. All right, so I've explained all of this and all. So let me move to the next slide. What do we have here? We have the steps, right? And this was, what I tried to explain briefly. So basically, what we want to do here is to, of course, start with a team. So we have a team of individuals who are familiar with the process, right? So we're not just putting people in a team just so that we'll say we have a team, but we want to have people who are familiar with the process, who can add value to the conversation, right? So if I have an RCA team and maybe only 2 members are contributing, the remaining 3 members or 4 members are not even contributing, they're not talking, then I don't need them in the team, right? So you basically want to have people who can add value to the conversation, who understand the process, or who are going to contribute one way or the other in the RCA team, right? So we have, for example, here I have engineering, I have maintenance, depending on what the problem is about. So if it's a maintenance problem, right, you want to have maybe somebody on electrical automation, right, mechanical, have proper oversight, people that understand it, right? If it's a consumer complaint, quality complaints, there are different areas to look at it. So you might have somebody from production as well as somebody from quality, from even engineering, who knows? So it depends, right? But you want to have people who can add value to the conversation and drive the investigation further, right? The next step is to define the problem properly, right? Remember that it's the correct problem statement that you're going to put in this box, the head of the fish, right? And we'll look at an example here. But what you want to do is to clearly define the problem, because it's the problem that determines the kind of questions that you ask, right? So if I'm solving for a homicide, I can be asking, theft related questions. Oh, how did you enter the house to take the material? Yes, maybe it might be relevant in that case, but the kind of crime or the kind of problem we are trying to solve will determine the kind of questions, the kind of people, the kind of investigation we do, right? And all of that. The next part is to brainstorm, right? List all the possible causes and all of that, right? Circle any potential root cause of the problem, and then we will, need to gather data or investigate further to verify whether that cause could be what we are looking for. All right, so let's look at the next slide. We have steps. So the fishbone diagram is often used in conjunction with the 5 whys, right? The 5 whys is another tool we'll talk about shortly, right? And all. So that takes us even deeper to the next stage, right? So as potential causes are identified, the 5 why is used to drive to a deeper understanding of the cause and eventually reach the root cause. So we'll get into the 5 why, but before then, let's look at a quick example of what an updated cause and effect diagram looks like, right? A fishbone diagram or an Ishikawa diagram. All right. So in this example here, we can see that I have a problem statement here, right? And this is just high level. For the purpose of practice, right? You want to be more descriptive in your problem statements, right? So for instance, this is a generic problem we're trying to solve, right? And maybe this business has identified surface defects as a whole, as a general problem, right? But in your own case, you might have a particular problem that has occurred. So let's say surface defects at so time at so shifts, right? By this customer, right? A customer has complained that a product had foreign material inside, right? So let's say you are in the business of making bread, right? And your customer was, chewing the bread, enjoying himself, eating the bread, and all of a sudden he just his teeth just gnashed something very very hard, right? And he brought it out of his mouth and saw that it was glass, right? So you have glass. So when that complaint is brought to you, right, as the person in charge of leading this RC, you will define the problem as glass found in bread bought by this person at so time, produced by this shift, right, on so dates, right? So your problem statement has to be very descriptive because that's what will determine. So for instance, if I know the day that bread was manufactured, right, that will determine who I'm going to question, what kind of documents I would need to review, right? It will make traceability easy, right? Because then I can now go back to my records and say, on this day, what happened? Did we have any glass break around this time? Was it reported? Was there any safety incident? And all of that, right? So you want to clearly define your problem statement here, right? But this is a generic problem statement, as I said. And then you see we have different categories. So for surface defects now, under measurements, we would have had repeatability issues or reproducibility issues or bias or stability. And these are things that could have caused surface defects, right? For environments, we could have had vibration, high particle count, temperature, condensation, and all of that, right? For methods, maybe the wrong tools was used as per the method of production here, or the setting was not properly done as per required, or the wrong parameters were used, right? For material, we will have supplier variation, right? So the material was different than our specification, or the property was different. For personnel, maybe the people on those shifts, right, or supervision. So like I said, this is a generic cause and effect diagram just to show you what could have happened across all these groups, right, and all of that. All right, so we'll move further to our next tool here. All right, awesome stuff. Okay, so for 5 whys, 5 whys is another tool used in RCAs, and basically 5 whys are, after we've used our cause and effect diagram to narrow down our problems, right? The next tool you want to use, right, to take it even further, right, is the 5 why tool. And why do we want to use the 5 why? The 5 why, just the name implies, is about asking whys, right? Asking whys at least 5 times, right? It could be, plus or minus, 3 or 2, right? You can ask why 2 times and get to your solution. You can ask why 8 times, right? So the 5 is just, a suggestion, right? In terms of asking why. But the whole idea is that you want to keep asking why until you get to a point where you can no longer ask why, right? Keep asking why until you get to a point where you know that there's really nothing else you can do at this point except fix this problem, right? And you will see some examples here, right? So after you've identified your potential cause in the previous tool, which is our cause and effect diagram, and we've said that, oh, high temperature was the result, was a potential cause, right, in that example. So I'm going to ask you, okay, why was there high temperature in the room, right? And you would say something like, oh, there was high temperature in the room because the thermostat, right, did not regulate the temperature, right? So let's say we have a thermostat that is supposed to let us know that the room is getting hot and then supply cold air, right? So maybe you have an air conditioning system that relies on the thermostat as an input, right? And the thermostat is misbehaving. So we do not get the air control or air handling units, right, do not get that feedback that the temperature is rising such that it can adjust, the temperature. So thermostat, there was high temperature because thermostat was faulty. Why was thermostat faulty? Right, thermostat was faulty because it was not maintained when it should have been. So there's a routine maintenance, right? And I'm just coming up, I'm just thinking about this off the top of my head, right? So there's a routine maintenance for thermostats. Maybe we do a weekly maintenance, and we've not done a weekly maintenance. Why have we not done a weekly maintenance? Because the guys were doing something else, the personnel was doing something else, or the personnel refused or neglected or did not take it serious. It was negligence, right? So you see that the root cause of the problem is not that we do not have another thermostat to replace it, or the thermostat um, did not do its job. The root cause, right, was that there was no discipline to follow the maintenance routine, right, by the personnel, right? Because what could happen, right? And this is why root cause analysis is very important. This is a very important digression, right? This is why root cause analysis is very important, because what could have happened is that I could have quickly gone to change the thermostat was the root cause, right? I could have said the thermostat was the root cause and quickly change the thermostat and fix the problem at that time, only for the same problem to happen next month. Why? Because there was still no maintenance, right? The personnel did not take it serious enough to maintain again. And then we change the thermostat again next month, and then next month again we're back to this same issue. So you see that if you want to solve a problem, you really want to get to the very root cause. So by the time I get to the point where I see that, oh, it's actually a people problem in this case now, these guys need to understand that we need to follow our maintenance routine, right? We need to be checking this thermostat every week, whether it is dust or whatever is causing this thermostat to fail. We would have seen this if we checked it every week, right, as per schedule, right, for whatever reason, right? And so this is just an example of solving for root cause, right? And we're able to get this because we're asking why, we're asking why, we're asking why. By the time we get to, oh, why did the personnel not fix or follow maintenance protocol, right, or maintenance routine, whatever the reason could have been, oh, the personnel was not aware he was supposed to do it, so we need to do training for that personnel, or the personnel, at this point, right? And this is how typically you solve problems. You get to a point where you know that, come on, there's no more why after this why, right? You know that you've gotten to that root cause and you need to take action, to close this problem, right? So let's move into the text and see what we have here. But the general idea of asking why is to keep asking why until you get to a point where you're sure that you've gotten to that point and there's no further point to go from here, right? And all of that. All right, so let's see what we have here. So the 5 why method asks the question, why does this problem exist, right? Which is what I said. Why did this event occur 5 times, right? So we are asking 5 times, driving to a more detailed level with each why to arrive at the cause of the problem, right? By asking why, right? 5 is the suggested number, like I said. What you want to do is to peel the layer, right? Remember the diagram I showed you at the beginning. You have a symptom, right? You have a visible problem, you have a first level cause, you have a higher level cause, and then you get to the root cause, right? So what you want to do with each why is like an onion peel, right? You are peeling each layer, and getting deeper until you get to the real issue, right? You can now see what the issue is and then attack that issue, and you can be rest assured that that will solve your problem. All right, so let's look at an example here, right? So, and this is also a generic example. So I have a problem here, right? So this is a potential cause. Patients are dissatisfied. Why? Why are they dissatisfied? So I have 5 branches here. So there are different reasons why they are dissatisfied. The first one says inattentive staff. So let's take that one and follow. Why do we have inattentive staff? The ratio of staff to patients is too low. So our staffs are overworked, right? We don't have enough staff to cover our patients, right? Why do we have that? We're unable to retain our experienced staff. So they have very high attrition, right? Staffs are just going, resigning and resigning and resigning, right? So we have very few staffs left, and then we don't have enough staff to cover our patients, right? And why do we have that? Staff turnover equals unfamiliar with processes, right? So this is just an example. So basically what we're saying here is that because we're having higher staff turnover, we're having inexperience or staff that do not have, familiarity with the process, and then we have ratio of staff too low, and then it appears that the staff are inattentive, right? Another reason why patients are dissatisfied is because they are depressed, injury, or illness. And why is that? So basically, you would see that at the end of the day, what you want to do is to get to this final point, right? And this is where we build our actions against, right? These are the problems that needs fixing, right? This final point. Doctors are spread too thin, hours too long, pay too low, negative cash flow, expansion plans are rejected, non-legible person available. And so you see that as I begin to look through all of this, I begin to see something common, right? There's a common trend across all of this, right? And that's basically the beauty of 5 whys. So our root cause analysis. So as you get deeper and deeper and deeper, you begin to see what the real problems are, and then we can now, profile solutions to solving these problems, right? So if I was going to profile solutions, this is where my solutions should address. This is what they should attack. If I go and profile solutions that attack any of this, right, I won't be solving the root cause. They will still come back later, and in fact, it will be as though you just threw money away because you've not solved the root cause. You've only bought yourself time, right? And that is not value adding to the business, right? So you want to be sure that you're solving a problem and you're solving the very, very foundation of that problem. All right, so let's move to the next tool, which is also important, right? And that is the Pareto chart. All right. Okay, Pareto chart, right? So Pareto is actually somebody's name, right? Pareto Vilfredo Pareto was an Italian economist, right? And I like to tell this story because it makes people remember the concept easily, all right? So Pareto discovered that in Italy, 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the population, right? And he started testing this theory and he discovered that a lot of the things we have in the world today in life follows that 80-20 principle, right? So, for instance, we can say 80% of the wealth, right, in the world today is owned by 20% of the population, right? In fact, some people would argue that 90% of the wealth is owned by 10% or 99% of the wealth is owned by 1%. But the idea is that majority of the effects that we see are caused by 20%, right? So majority in this sense, 80% of the problem that we see in our improvements, in our quality systems, in maintenance, in production, in all these areas, right? 80% of those problems are caused by 20% of our issues, right? So if we can get those 20%, right? If we can fix those 20%, the impact it will have on our business, the impact it will have on solving problems is 80%. And that's massive when you think about it. That if I can fix those vital few, right? That's what we call them, vital few. They can have a massive impact on our business, right? And so that's what the 80% principle is. So let's bring this back home to what we are discussing about RCAs. So the point at which we implement Pareto charts is when we've done our brainstorming, we've done our 5 whys, and then we've identified those issues, right? Those causes, right? So now I now have 5 major causes. So this problem is caused by 5 major things, right? So if I look at my problem statement, I've done all the investigation, I've done it. There are 5 major things that are causing this problem. But what Pareto is saying is that out of those 5 major things, 2 or even 1 of those things, if we fix that one, the impact it will have on solving the problem is as high as 80% of the problem, right? So let me give an example. Let's say that I discover that I have people problem, I have an equipment problem, right? I have an environmental problem, right? Those are 3 problems, right? It would be naive of you to think that all the problems have equal weight, right? That I can decide to fix any of them first, and then it will solve the problem equally. Maybe it will solve it one third. I have 3 problems, right? So what Pareto is saying is that those problems do not carry equal weight. One problem can solve 50% of the issues. So, for instance, the people problem can solve maybe even 90% of my issues. If I fix the people, they will know how to run the machine well, they will know how to manage the environment and produce results. Yes, they might not produce 100% of the result, but they will produce so much that I might even decide not to even continue solving any other problem again, right? That is the concept of Pareto, right? So you want to be able to prioritize your solutions, your actions, right? Because again, resources are finite, right? We don't have unlimited cash, we don't have unlimited time, unlimited resources. So you want to channel your resources to what will give you the most value, right? So if I have 3 investments and one of them will give me 30%, one will give me 20%, one will give me 10%, which one do I, and all of them cost the same amount of money, which one do you want to fix? You want to fix the one that will give you 30% returns, right? First. And that's the concept of Pareto. So there are a lot of tools. We are not going to go into how to draw Pareto because Excel can do that. Put in the data is to do your Pareto charts for you. It's as simple as that. So let's just look at this example, and let me get my pen on, right? So in this particular example, I have a chart, right? Pareto is a type of bar chart, right? Because you can see those bars here. And this chart is about restaurant complaints. And you see that I have a number of complaints: overpriced food, small portions, wait time, food is tasteless, and all of that. But when we look at the number of complaints, so how many people are complaining about the food being too overpriced, right? 789 people. How many people are complaining about small portions? 621. How many people are complaining about wait times? 109. So you discover that these problems are not equal, right? It's just like we say, not all fingers are equal. The problems are not equal. So there's no point giving them equal attention, right? So if you look at the Pareto charts will list out an axis that puts the dimension of numbers here, right, and percentage. So how much percentage does that number contribute to? So you see that at the 80% mark, which is where I drew this line, just this one problem and part of this problem is contributing to 80% of the complaints, right? 789, right? So if I fix this overpricing that we have in this complaint, you see that 80% or almost 80% of my problem is solved, right? And that's the whole idea of the Pareto charts, right? So it allows you to prioritize your problem solving initiative, where you want to start from, and you can see the impact it will have on your business, on solving the problem, right? And so this is just something you want to think about when you're doing your action, taking your action to fix the problem and all of that, right? So let's go into the text and see what is there. All right, so we are saying that Pareto charts are bar charts, like I said, and they are prioritized in descending order, right, from left to right. So they identify the vital few opportunities, right, for improvement. So what are those vital few things that if I fix, right, they are few and they are vital, right, because they are vital in the sense that if I fix them, they have a huge impact on my business, right, on my bottom line, on adding value to me. They provide the most value, right? So they are vital few, right? It shows where to apply your initial efforts to get the most gain, right? So Pareto is not about identifying problems, right? We've used the previous tools to identify the problems, right? Using brainstorming tools, using my cause and effects using my 5 whys, right? Now I already know what I'm going to do. I just need to know which one am I going to do first, right? Which one do I start with, then which one do I move to next, and all of that. And this is where my Pareto comes in, right? So the fundamental use of Pareto in quality improvement is the ordering of factors that contribute to quality efficiency, right? So the purpose of this chart is to identify which problems should be worked on first. And so I've been hitting on this again and again. And if you don't want to remember anything, just remember this: that Pareto chart allows us to prioritize problems and know which one to fix first, right? In the context of RCAs and all of that. So you can apply this in your daily life and in other areas. You want to fix problems that gives the most value, right? And value is what you determine it to be. You're the customer. So if this is valuable to you, you know how you would measure value. All right. So again, reiterating what we've said, once potential causes are known and the data on the frequency of occurrence is available, Pareto can be a simple tool to help focus your improvement efforts. Right? Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So we can use this tool in conjunction with 5 whys to get a deeper understanding of our potential causes. All right, so let's go to the final bit of this conversation on RCAs as we round up this conversation, and that's on our action plan. So now we've identified the possible causes, we've narrowed it down using 5 whys, we've prioritized them. Now it's time to take action, right? So what this is basically doing is just itemizing your action. And this is like the most important part of all of this, because at the end of the day, what you want to do, regardless of how nice your suggestions are or what you've identified, if there's no plan to take action, right, and a subsequent action that is executed, all you have done is in futility, right? You've just done a very beautiful exercise, right, without any intention to add value. So the value comes when we close these actions, right? And this is a tool that can easily make that. You can easily track where you are on all these actions. So basically what you want to list here, and you can customize this table however you want to put it, right? In fact, I've seen tables where apart from responsible, you have accountable, right? Because there's a distinction between responsible and accountable. You have issue, right? You have the date the issue was raised. And so basically, this is just a framework, but you can customize this however you want. But there are major things that you need to show, right? So you need to show what the issue was that the action is trying to solve, right? So that we can easily link the two together. If I just list out the actions, I might not understand what the issue was. So what was the issue that we identified? And then what action are we taking, right? Who is going to be responsible for taking that action, right? For closing that gap, right? Who is responsible for that? When do we expect this to be done, right? When do we expect this to be done? So if it's going to be done in 24 hours, put it there. If it's going to be done in 1 month, put it there. What's the status, right? So I've seen a lot of examples. I've seen work in progress, done, completed, right? Even some details, right? Oh, this is where we are. We've made the order. The order is on its way. We're expecting it at so date and all of that. The whole idea is that you want action to be tracked so that people are accountable, people know what is happening. And this can also be a tool to communicate what is being done and what has been done and all of that, right? Imagine that you solve the problem, you've taken actions, and then the problem reoccurs. One of the first things you want to do is come back to this action plan and see the status of all these actions. So if I come to this status and I see that all the status are open, I won't be surprised that the problem has occurred again, right? Because of course it's going to happen again. So if I did an RCA and I leave my actions open, I know that, oh, I should have used mosquito nets, to prevent mosquito bites. I should have used insecticide. I should have done this. I should have done that. I said, okay, buy this, install mosquito nets in the windows, do this, do this, do that, and I've still not done it. Of course, mosquitoes will bite me again, and of course, malaria will come knocking, and then you shouldn't be surprised that the problem has occurred again, right? So, but if I come here and I see that status has been closed on every single one of them, then I now have to start asking questions and doing another form of RCA to understand what failed, right? How did mosquito bite me? What are the things I did not, what are the things I should have done that I did not do, right? And all of that. Right. So there's a general rule of thumb that what is not documented is not done. Right. So if you do not document your action, if you do not document the status and all of that, it's as good as it's not done, because what's the evidence that it was done? Right. What's the evidence that we even did any investigation or nothing was done? Right. So it's important that we document our actions and what we intend to do and all of that. And then we can expect to see a decline in common problems have been happening, right? So if a problem has been happening frequently, is always happening, I'm always getting these complaints, and I do a proper RCA, right, and I have actions and I've closed all the actions, what I should see is a decline, right? Gradually I should have, yes, I might have some failures that seep through the cracks, right? But what I should see is an improvement, right? There should be a decline until I get to eventual zero, right? Complaints in that regard, right? So that's basically how we'll end this course. And I hope you've benefited richly from the RCA methodology and you've learned something useful that you can apply, right? Let's just see what the last slide talks about. So this is just reiterating all that I've said, right? Action plan forms are plans to implement the solution and eliminate, right? Eliminate, that's a key word there, right? Remember what I said at the beginning. If the problem still reoccurs, then we've not eliminated, we've not treated the root cause yet. So we want to eliminate the root cause identified, and this is documented, tracked, managed, and evaluated, right? Adherence to the solution must be checked at intervals to ensure compliance, right? So if you remember the disciplined approach too, right, you want to ensure that you've implemented a permanent corrective action. And from time to time, you want to make sure that, oh, are we still doing this? Is this still being done? Right. And this is where, audit comes up, or monthly, quarterly, whatever, frequency works for you. But you want to ensure that there's some form of compliance, and we're ensuring that, this failure does not happen again. All right, so I hope you found this useful. I look forward to your success and see you at the top. Have a wonderful day. Bye.